Welcome back, everyone. Can I chew your ear off for a moment? I learned a new term. It's called glazing something or someone. In a family-friendly vernacular, it means to feed them compliments that are so over the top that they come across as cringy or phony. Huh. I would like to regale you with a short history lesson on operating systems. We're talking Windows. I'm probably showing my age, but in the early days of Windows, like Windows 98, in the days of home internet were typically over dial-up, commonly called landlines, we had slow and not so interesting web traffic. Email was huge, and to get a virus or infection requires effort. You would have to click an email or download a program and run it. All fun times. Security existed, but it was in the before times when McAfee and Norton antivirus were king. Let's fast forward a few operating systems later. 2000, Windows ME, XP, Windows 7, all the way to Windows 8.1. Exploits were plentiful. I'm skipping a bunch of issues, but threats only grew larger and nastier as time went on. Some exploits didn't require you to click a program. They could happen just by connecting to the open web. The websites we enjoy now weren't always secure. Info simply taken. There were viruses, trojans, worms, or the umbrella term malware was a big issue. Right around Windows 10, Microsoft decided updates that were once recommended are now mandatory. Interestingly enough, a good chunk of the exploits I mentioned were patched by Microsoft months before they ran into the wild, but folks either ignored updates, skipped them, blocked them, or stopped them altogether. So with mandatory updates and other built-in security tools, if you didn't have a security program, no big deal. Most active infections and compromises were reduced. Hey, focus. What does this have to do with 3D printing? I think I got off on a tangent. We'll revisit that. Now, 3D printing. How do we print on a modern 3D printer? One way is offline. Simple printer sitting by its lonesome, asking for a memory card or USB stick to date. Great, insert that card, has its print instructions, press a few buttons, and we're off to printing. Simple, clean, kind of cumbersome, but everything is off the grid, just you and that printer and no one else in between. Second way, if the printer has a network connection, we can connect it to your router with Ethernet cord, or if it has Wi-Fi, over wireless. This means I could gather my print files into a 3D slicer program, send the files to the printer, and print. There could even be a way to send files over a file transfer protocol. I may have to manually interact with the printer afterwards, but got the files over there, just as clean. I may not even need to get up. No internet traffic. Everything is still in-house, no connection to the internet. And all those nasty bugs and exploits that I was just talking about. My network is a castle that I manage and maintain. So unless there's a saboteur within the network, I'm humming along fine. A third way, over the internet. But this is where things get a bit tricky. I'll get geeky here for a moment. Using that same analogy of the castle being our network, think of everyone's castle or networks are on a continent. Everything behind the castle walls are secure and generally safe. Now, how do I access the contents of that castle if I'm outside of it? You could leave a back door with your own key. So if you have some networking chops, you can open up some ports or have them trigger if you knock 3 times. From there, the guards will allow you to talk to anyone behind the walls. This method has fallen out of favor for more advanced ones, but it's an option. What else do we have? We could have a space outside the walls that is trusted to send a carrier pigeon of info to a contact behind the walls. This is a kludgy analogy, but I would like to talk to you about our sponsor, NordVPN. Just kidding. But that could be one way to describe a virtual private network. You talk to a trusted source outside the walls that can send information to or manage resources behind the walls. This can get a bit tricky to set up yourself, but there are free and paid services to do it. Ultimately, people tend to use the last option, cloud. You can find a service that can handle the data you send it, and then it sends it to your source behind the wall. There's nothing magical here. The security gets more important as you move up the ladder. 1 and 2 you handle yourself. 3 is creating a hole or making a trusted connection between you and your resources behind those castle walls. Still with me? So if you have a modern 3D printer, option 1 is always available. It is more cumbersome, but it is the most secure. There's no internet access. Everything is air-gapped. 3D printers cannot open portals to the outside, cannot send information telepathically. It will not move data through quantum entanglement. Anyone who says otherwise is lying, ignorant, or a little batty. As for 2, it requires next to no effort. But you're on your own. You have to send information within your castle, within your network. As long as you don't have a saboteur, you're good to go. The cloud way requires a bit of trust. They're going to handle the traffic for you. So to be self-referential, everyone in my last video was like, hey, look at what everyone else is saying. They changed some TOS and this has problems here and they're lying to me there and how can I trust them here? If that's the case, don't do option 3. Option 1 and 2, I care more about. Again, option 1 is always available. It's like not updating or keeping your system air-gapped. Option 2 means you secure your network. If you're that worried, don't do option 3. So why am I mentioning this? I looked at my YouTube analytics and a lot of you have come to me for assistance. You picked up a printer that is easy to use, but you're not sure how to use the slicer, or you had questions about a few things. And I'm not telling you to just get rid of your investment, whether you spent $200 or thousands of dollars. That's silly. All of my fellow YouTubers who hopped on the hype train and not telling you the full story, I'm wondering what their motivations are. At the very least, I want to give you options. If I can't do at least that, then I've done you a disservice. So about that option 3, internet and cloud, they're at the most risk. They carry the most risk. Even the most secure services can have issues. They're the ones being tested the most. Since they are trusted to handle traffic between themselves and the million other castles around that continent, they may be asking you to update as well. However, you have to make that decision for yourself. I can only give you a brief history of things connected to the net and how even the most used operating system handled it. Microsoft forced updates. Because something is secure now does not mean it will stay secure tomorrow. Updates may add security and features, and it could disable them. This has always been a thing. There's a reason I never hopped onto the Bambu Lab hate bandwagon. I do like their printers. They are well-made machines. Perhaps I will make a true glazing video about it, but even the most well-intentioned person is missing the point that I made in my first video. There are a million printers out there connected to cloud services. This isn't just Bambu. We have Creality, Prusa, Anchormate, and other companies that are starting to create connections to printers behind those castle walls. If any company gets compromised, that is a recipe for disaster. Having FOMO for an update that was never promised, or getting angry for cloud service that are not guaranteed, it shows a level of misunderstanding of what is provided to us as consumers. The cloud servers are Bambu Lab service. If you use them, then it's under their purview, rules, tools, and access. If you want, you can make your own pseudo cloud service. This whole event is interesting to me. I brought up the company Apple in another video to show we either have ignorance of the level of control a company has over the products we hold, even if those controls are built in from the beginning. I brought up Microsoft because those controls became more and more intrusive as time goes on. On some level, we accept the boundaries and limits to the products we use every day. I wanted to make one last point. As I'm sitting here editing this video, I just took a mental inventory of all the smart cloud Internet of Things devices around me. A commenter reminded me of the security vectors of IoT devices. I have a smart plug connected to my printer to disable it remotely. I have a smart speaker with Google Home, which connects to my smart lights. So I have smart speakers, wireless printers, smart cameras, camera doorbells, smart thermostats, smart heaters, all connected to a separate network. But if I didn't, they would potentially have access to my printer, even in LAN only. I know for a fact most companies are not updating their equipment long after the sale of that product. And remember, when I said you're responsible for your own security, do you think me checking a terms of service on a website means anything? So even if Bambu Lab closed up shop tomorrow, shut down their servers, and went quietly into that good night, your printer will still work offline with SD cards and within your network with LAN only. So again, thank you very much for listening to me ramble. If you have any comments, please leave them down below.